Welcome to pattern making class. I'm Annette Julie, and today we're working on making a lining pattern. We're making it for a princess seam jacket, and we're working on the back. So here is the side front lining that I made in the last video, where we added a little tuck and we made it larger, changed the armhole, shortened the hem from the master pattern. And you're going to sew a little bit right there in the seam allowance, because we have a 1/2 inch seam allowance, and that's just going to help that to be a tuck release so that it has some fullness for the lining. We're going to put a little pleat in the back lining. Once we copy this off, we're going to have an action pleat down our center back. So let's get started. I have my back neck facing. I have my center back. And I have my side back. And these are all my princess seam panels for my jacket development. So please watch the prior videos if you don't have these pieces. So please go ahead and draw a green line here for my center back. Okay, let's get that one down. And let's draw our shared hemline, because we're going to take the side back, overlap it on the stitch line, trace these guys off together. Let's first start with the center back. We have our grain line on our pattern paper, and we're going to go ahead and use a pattern weight or tape. And we're going to match this to the grain line. Let's go ahead and trace this off. This is my center back at the hip. And now we're going up the center back. This includes the seam allowance, and so will the pattern that you're making. Here's the center back. Now we'll go down to the waist, and let's make sure we get the notches. I'm not going to end up using these little notches here at the center back, so I'm going to make them small. But just going to copy them off for now so we can orient ourselves with our pattern. Now let's go ahead and let's copy off our neckline. Our shoulder, we've got our neckline. Now let's do our armhole. Our princess seam, not an armhole, and we'll continue down our princess seam. Let's capture those notches. our waist, and our double notches because it is a back. Let's check and see if we have everything. Neckline, shoulder, center back princess seam, notches, hemline. That looks good. Lift up your pattern, and we're going to grab the side back, and we're going to use that next. I'm going to bring a few notches in so I can see them when I'm working with the next pattern, specifically the ones on the princess seams. Okay, now we also have our 1/2 inch seam allowance. So feel free to cross your corners and draw in a little bit of seam allowance. We have 1.5 inch hem allowance. And there's that seam allowance. Up here in the neckline, we have that 1/4 inch. Shoulder is 1/2. Princess seam is 1/2. So we've marked this, and now this is going to turn into our back lining by lining up the other princess panel, but this is the side back princess panel, and we're going to line it up along the stitch line. So this is 1/2 inch away from the edge, and we're going to line that up down here at the hem. So right here is the stitch line. Right here is the stitch line. And they both start angling up. But at the hem, right here and right here is a perfect place to line them up, overlap them, and line up the rest of your hem and weight that down. That looks great. Let's go ahead and start copying off shoulder, armhole, armhole notches, our side seam, and our side seam hip, let's go ahead and mark the waist and our hem. Now before we take this up, we've got to check and see, did we go ahead and mark everything? Yes. Now, we need to mark where this waist is. So, we're not going to leave it all baggy like this to make this lining 2 pieces into 1 piece. We're going to add a few little details that'll make it fit better. So right now, where the princess seam is, at the waist, go ahead and make note of it. There it is there. That's on the seam allowance line. Okay, make note of that and mark it. And then at the same time, where you have the waist on the other pattern piece, go in 1/2 inch and mark that too. So now you've got the back totally copied off, and we're ready to move on. Remove your pattern weights and go ahead and bring in some of your notches. back armhole notch. Gonna finish with my side seam. Gonna draw in my hemline. And then this is ready to make the corrections. I'm Annette Shui, and I'll see you in the next video.